Alright, so here's the cold side piping. Not the best fit up job, but some of it's decent. Also not the best at welding thin aluminum, so probably just kind of do the best I can, not worry too much about how the welds look, more of just getting it, finished, but trying to make sure that the joints are clean. So yeah, and finish this out, and then the last thing will be putting a blow-off valve bung right here, and then getting that blow-off valve on there, and then doing the hot side stuff. So take care of this first. So you'll notice that I started off with the TIG welder and then changed over to the spool gun. So I'm aware that I'm not very good at thin aluminum. I can do thicker aluminum pretty well, and it was starting to get away from me, so I decided to go with the spool gun because I know what I can do with it. I know it's a little bit dirtier and a little bit more cleanup, but at least I know that I can finish and get, the exact thing that I'm looking to get. It doesn't look too bad. It's definitely got a lot of spatter on it and needs cleaned up, but I knew I could actually finish it with a spool gun as opposed to trying to do with a TIG where I just start chasing holes and everything starts getting out of hand. So I just opted for the option that I know I can finish with and get a decent result. It's more about functionality than looks. I would like it to look good, but if I've got to opt to take a little bit of that looks away from functionality, then I'm going to take that route. Anyways, got to do the blow-off valve. I think it will go underneath, so somewhere like right here I'll have to cut a hole with a hole saw and put on my my adapter or my little flange for the blow-off valve. I just wanted to be kind of out of the way, so I'm going to fit it back on the car and see where it would sit. Alright, so what I was thinking was taking the blow-off valve and putting it underneath, but I think the best course of action is going to be putting it on top somewhere here or here, just because there's not a whole lot of room underneath. I could put it under this tube if there's enough room under there. Just really limited on space, so I have to figure out the best option for it. So actually moving it up like that gives you a good bit more room underneath. And this is how it would sit, essentially. So I might go ahead and put it up underneath here. Let me hold a clamp on it and then try to fit it up underneath there. So it kind of looks to me like the best option, maybe I could do it here, but I kind of actually like it right around here. Where you can kind of still see it. It's not in anything's way, really. And it kind of fills up this little void, which I kind of like because I've got so much extra hood space. Like this area right here, kind of would have been nice if I hadn't cut so much out of it, but I had to do what I had to do at the time. And I'm hoping to get a different radiator so I can remove this little one and have a little bit extra room down here for, I don't know what I would want to put there. But anyways, so I think, yeah, I'm going to opt to put it like right here. So I'm just going to have to cut this high edge off and hole saw a hole in this tube here and then weld it on, and it should be good to go. I like my placement like right here. I'm just gonna mark where I need the hole to be. And I'm going to probably undersize the hole about a 1/16 of an inch all the way around, or maybe closer to an 1/8, so I still have some meat to weld to. Whenever I weld it, it's going to curl that sharp edge in. And I can still get to it from in here, so if I need to clean up the inside or whatever, I can do that. So the cold side's buttoned up. We got a blow-off valve. Now it's time to start working on the wastegates. Now this one will be pretty easy because I can come straight out here and have enough room. On this side, it may be a little bit more challenging. I might have to cut out a little bit of the hood just to get it to occupy this little area. I think I want them to be pretty much the same. Obviously, we'll be able to get them identical, but close will be sweet. And also, it needs to be in this bend because the velocity starts changing, or the direction of the exhaust flow starts changing right here. And this has the most amount of exhaust pressure right here in this corner. So the best escape for that is to go straight because it doesn't want to take that bend. So if I put a wastegate right here, it will be able to relieve all that exhaust pressure and slow down the turbine side very efficiently. Same thing over here. They're both 50 millimeter wastegates, so it should be able to dump just about all of that exhaust pressure. Okay, so I have a little piece of 2-inch stainless. That's going to be the merger or dump, whatever you want to call it. So it's going to land about right here. And obviously this tube is a little bit too long, but what I want to make sure of is that I meet this bend right here, and this joint is really tight. So the easiest thing to cut is going to be the straight side. I can just cut it down to the length that it needs to be after I cope this deal. And really the only thing to get this to work is going to be taking this and concaving it a little bit, and also just a little bit here to get that radius inside there. And then I will cut this to the length, which should be about 3/4 of an inch right here, just a straight 90-degree cut. And then cap with the V-band clamp, and it should be in just about perfect position whenever it gets shortened up. So I'll do the same thing for the other side, and I think what I'm going to end up doing is, once this wastegate is on here, probably turning the dump tube up, and there's another V-band clamp that fits onto here, and dumping it back into the actual exhaust, so we don't have a little rogue tube or just an open orifice here for water to fill up. And I don't necessarily want it to just start, popping fireballs and stuff straight down right towards my little methanol tank. So I'll probably take some tube and run it into the exhaust. It won't be too much of a hassle, and I think it'll add a little bit of character to it as well. Alright, so it's been 3 days, and I now have the hot side and the cold side welded up. I have the wastegates on here, and I have the blow-off valve on. I just have to clean up the tubes a little bit, deburr, get some of these BBs off of here, and then start working on the actual exhaust coming out of the turbos for it. So, there's someone asked on Instagram, it's like, why didn't you just do this from the beginning? And I kind of just answered, that's a good question. Like, I'd never thought about it before or something like that. It's just kind of like a quick joke answer or whatever. But in reality, I wanted to do this from the beginning, but when you have a very limited budget in a short amount of time to get something done, you kind of have to just do what you need to do to get it running. So for me, I knew that just doing something quick and easy, I could get it done. And I finished that first little turbo kit or whatever in a couple of hours. So it was done. Didn't look good. I used tubing that I already had, like all the bends were already done. So I just slammed it together and welded everything up with a MIG welder. It worked. It's what I needed was just something that worked. But like this stuff here, it's not the best either, but this is 3 days to get to this point. And it'll be 4 or 5 days by the time we get everything, cleaned up, do the hot side, the exhaust and all that. So I just didn't have time, and there's a whole bunch of stuff to get done on the car. Like, the car hadn't been driven in probably over 20 years. I had to redo pretty much everything. I had to do brakes from scratch, plumbing, like everything, electrical and all that. So I had a huge list of things to do. I had just enough time, just enough money to get everything to work, enough to get it out there. And fortunately, it made the trip and everything went well. So that was pretty much it. I want to take a little bit more time and do things a little bit more correctly. Going to redo the rear end, obviously putting these turbos on there. But with these turbos, this engine, the way it is not going to last. So I'm definitely going to have to go in and do some modifications there. I don't know how far I'm going to take it right now. I'll probably leave the short block as is, do a cam, lifters, valve springs, and probably change the intake on it and put some larger injectors. Maybe do some smart coils or something like that, just to get a little bit more voltage so the spark doesn't get knocked out whenever I start making a little bit of boost. I want to make 800, but I don't think the stock internals are going to like that too much. I think the pistons, the second you detonate, it's pretty much over. When you're making, 600-700 horsepower, 800. You can make 800, but it's not gonna last long. You can make 1,000 for, a pull or two, maybe if you're lucky. Some people got really lucky with it and been able to make a lot of power and make it last for a whole season, which is, I want to make somewhere between 6, 7, maybe 800 leaning on it. Which for these turbos, that's nothing. So definitely gonna change the map and everything, or my boost curve for these new turbos. It'll be a whole lot more efficient, and won't have to worry about it consuming oil, because there's a bunch of oil inside of the intake and all that. So the engine itself was burning oil at one point. So there's a few other things just need to take care of. Like I might do a new timing set on it. I might change the pulleys to a Corvette style, just so I can get a low slung alternator in there. Pretty much keep everything, like the body and everything, the same. Like I said, redo the rear end, redo that 4-link deal back there, get away from the bush stuff and go straight to a Heim joint, and maybe narrow it. I'm not sure if that's a good idea because the wheelbase is so short already. If you narrow that even more, you get to short wheelbase, really narrow tire, really narrow width rear end and front end. It becomes pretty unstable pretty quickly, I'm afraid. So I'm gonna have to figure out what the best route for that is. And as far as like the body and stuff, I think I'm gonna leave it all about the same. The only thing I'm going to do is try and figure out a better way for the windows to close. If I have to make a frame where it has like a receiver groove for the glass to slide up in like a channel, then I'll do something like that to retain the window and make it where it doesn't shatter when I try to make it weatherproof type of thing. And another deal is going to be the radiator. I'm going to have to get a custom radiator made that is a really, really thick core, so I can have the most cooling for the small amount of room that I have in the engine bay or up front. Wheels and tires, probably going to change the front wheels to aluminum ones, something that looks a little bit better. Probably going to upgrade the brakes to like a TR6. They have some upgrades for those. I don't know if they have like a Willwood or something like that, but they may have an equivalent to that. And I don't know if the TR6 has a different lug pattern. It may still be four lug. 5 lug would be cool in the front, just so I could just have a little bit more confidence in the wheel itself. I probably don't or won't go beadlocks in the rear on this thing. I don't think it needs it. I think just a good knurled wheel, and worst case scenario, some rim screws. Probably stick with the small radial. I would love to be able to put 2810-5 on it, but I don't know if that's realistic because that 235 looks giant on this car. But if I narrow the rear end and get that tire up underneath the fender, I might have more room. It might not look as goofy, and I can also drop down the whole car a little bit more. That's going to help with stability for sure, getting it a few inches off of the track, but high enough to where if you're driving down the road and you hit a bump, you're not going to scrape your oil pan or the belly pan underneath there, or the catch tray. So yeah, that's pretty much the plan. Is just update a few things, safety things. The cage is actually good enough to get 8.5 cert for it, but I want to do a few more things to it to make it a little bit over what I want to do. It should be an 8.5 cert, so it's a little bit on the safer side. Not quite 25.1 or 25.2 or anything like that. And I'm not sure if I really want to do a funny cage in there just yet, because if the car starts getting really fast, like towards bottom 8s or close to 7 seconds, it might be a wise idea to extend the wheelbase a little bit. So I might save any of that serious chassis stuff until after. But I think what I will do is take some chromoly and run it as a, I think they call it the rocker bar, and tie in the cage to the frame all the way down the rockers and stuff like that. Because the frame underneath here is 24 inches wide. And I have my outriggers, but I want to tie everything in. And just, we keep the chassis a little bit more rigid. and maybe do a little bit of triangulation in the rear end to keep that, where the shock tower and everything is, just a little bit more rigid. But the other thing I might try to do is figure out a way to drop that driver's seat down a little bit, or rake it a little bit more. I like to raise the steering column just a little bit so I have a little bit of room, leg room, so I'm not having to stand on top of my own feet in there. The other thing is I want to do an open tunnel so we can have a little bit more foot room in there. So definitely have to have a transmission that is ballistic proof, or whatever you call it, an SFI bell housing and an SFI case that has like a built-in scatter shield, and then doing just a full belly pan underneath the car. Obviously a drive shaft hoop enclosure and all that to keep the the drive shaft away from us, and just running like an open tunnel in there. It would definitely make it a lot hotter in there, but I think I would rather be a little bit hotter than and have a little bit of extra room in there, especially down by the feet, because we can always like open the windows and get a little draft going in there, or whatever. But yeah, that's pretty much the thoughts on that. Is to get it 850 certified, and just doing the things that need to do just to get that certified, plus a little bit more for my own, just my own conscience, I guess, just making a little bit more than it needs to be. So that's the plan. Probably do that over the next 9-10 months, something like that. Maybe a little bit of a slow process. I've got other stuff that I'm trying to work on with the 240, and I really want to get this thing out and do a little bit more racing with it too. So I want to do a full build on it where I have to rip everything apart, and then it won't be ready again until like October next year or something like that, or this year later. Yeah, definitely want to be able to use it while I'm working on it. So I think that's the plan for now.